Good last count, Corla. Debate on the nomination of a third Taoiseach in one Dáil term is unprecedented in Irish politics. And I want to start by repeating my personal good wishes to the outgoing Taoiseach Leo Varadkar on the next chapter of his life. I do acknowledge former Taoiseach Varadkar has undoubtedly led the country through challenging times, through Brexit and COVID in particular. And I do also acknowledge, as you said earlier, the need for courtesy and for respect in politics. And indeed, in that vein, I also extend my personal good wishes to the presumptive incoming Taoiseach, Deputy Simon Harris. As Minister Harris, I think it's important that we're respectful in politics. And as Minister Harris has acknowledged, however, he has not much time to change the course of this government. I hope he has the courage to try to make that change, but unfortunately, from what we have heard so far, his elevation today will not deliver the change that we need, and that's why we in the Labour Party cannot support the Fine Gael nomination for Taoiseach. The appointment of another temporary Taoiseach by this coalition is just more superficial change, cosmetic change, not the radical change that people so badly need. That's why we have called for a general election now, not just a change of Taoiseach. Last count, Corla, Ireland is a country with impressive GDP. We have full employment and the public purse sees the benefit of that, reaping plentiful tax takes. Coming back from the darkness of global recession, those conditions have created a unique political opportunity, and the pandemic response has shown us what the state can achieve, what can be done through public investment. But this potential has unfortunately not been followed through by this current government or indeed the previous government. And instead, after 8 years of rule by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, with or without the Greens, the housing crisis is worse than ever. February's homelessness figures broke new and shameful records, particularly for children in homelessness. Emergency department chaos leaves sick people delaying hospital visits, and workers' rights are still trailing comparable European countries. We continue to miss our climate targets, buying credits from other countries when we should be investing more in clean infrastructure, and so many basic public services remain out of reach: childcare and creche places, home help hours, autism assessments, community policing. Our country has come far, and there's much about which we can and should be proud. But profound inequality remains, and Ireland is not working for far too many people. Our communities are held back by government parties which do not believe in harnessing the power of the state. And that is most true of the Fine Gael party. So a new nameplate on the door of the Taoiseach's office won't change that, because reliance on the private sector alone certainly won't change that. We heard Deputy Harris's address to his party's Ardèche on Saturday. And with just 50 weeks until a general election must be held, that speech presented an opportunity to set out a new programme for his party and indeed for the government. It was a long speech, and in less than 1 year, Minister Harris did indeed promise to do more than his party has achieved in those 8 wasted years of prosperity I referenced earlier. But his speech did not allay our concerns in Labour. There was a lot in it and over the weekend about a new energy, which sounds indeed like a Star Wars tagline. But where is that new energy in reality to deliver on housing, on healthcare, on childcare, on climate action and workers' rights, on disability rights, and all those areas which are crying out for change, where people are crying out for change? Where is the drive, the ambition, the courage to deliver the change that people really need, to deliver an Ireland that truly works? Let's take housing. Deputy Harris conceded that his government's targets are too low. And indeed, he called for 250,000 new builds in the next 5 years. I welcome that. We in Labour have been saying this for more than a year. And I wonder how Minister Harris's colleagues in government have felt about that call, given how quick many of them were to mock our call for 50,000 new builds per annum that we made last year. I don't want to say we told you so, but we do need, Minister, to see actual delivery of homes. It's not good enough to say that you're warming up, Minister Ryan, after so many years in government. And absent from that announcement was any real commitment to increase the state resourcing to ensure delivery of the supply of public housing, of social and affordable housing that people need across communities. Instead, we saw yet more reliance on private sector, the staple of the Fine Gael diet. Rather than restricting evictions, Minister Harris prefers more renters' credit. But what use to renters is getting less than 1 month's rent back when you live, as so many of our constituents and so many people do, in permanent fear of losing your home, permanent fear of eviction? And rather than state action, Minister Harris prefers more subsidies for developers, waiving development levies. When that approach has failed for the past 8 years, how can it deliver change now? Instead of making homes more affordable, the reality is prices are at record highs, and now is not the time for the government to double down on bad policy, because the housing disaster is the civil rights issue of this generation, and indeed it's multi-generational. We all know this. It cuts across and affects every generation and every community. And on day one, the incoming Taoiseach should recognise that by committing to end no-fault evictions, to make renters safe, by regulating short-term lets, by transforming the Land Development Agency into a truly effective state construction company, and by delivering 50,000 new builds and 50,000 deep retrofits each year, with adequate provision within that of social and affordable homes. We can find enough construction workers to deliver this. But as a minister, the incoming Taoiseach would not even pay apprentices the minimum wage, let alone mount a proactive campaign to recruit construction workers. In the section of your address on climate, the incoming Taoiseach assured that Fine Gael would not lecture voters on climate action, perhaps a barb about some of his government colleagues. In fairness, he made good on that commitment right away, because the section on climate action was dropped from the speech. No lecturing, not a word. And this does not bode well for commitment within government to a cleaner environment, for cheaper bills, better public transport or warmer homes. And indeed, the passage that was on the cutting room floor made no reference to really effective climate action measures, such as supports for retrofitting homes. The closest we saw was a promise to farmers that the government knows it cannot keep, a promise on nitrates derogation. And that irony will not be wasted on many farmers after 2 consecutive wet seasons due to climate change. Lofty promises, devoid of substance, are a feature of other areas too. Deputy Harris boasted of his party's achievements in healthcare, but that praise jars with the experiences of so many people who've told me about spending hours or even days on hospital trolleys. It jars with the experiences of healthcare staff running on empty, suffering the consequences of the HSE recruitment embargo and of low pay. And of course, it's contradicted by the Fine Gael pitting of employers against workers when it comes to policies like sick pay, or your delaying of our bill to provide for reproductive healthcare leave following pregnancy loss. Because health is a holistic issue, and we deserve a government which recognises that. We need to ensure that staffing emergency departments, creating healthy workplaces and implementation of disability rights are taken seriously by this government. It's welcome to see the incoming Taoiseach's commitment, indeed a recommitment, to ratifying the UN CRPD optional protocol. But we need meaningful measures to make change for people's everyday lives, scrapping the green paper, ending the means test on the carers allowance, ensuring assessments are available and that diagnosis leads to supports in the home or the classroom. And without that, promises to unblock the backlog in assessments are empty rhetoric. And in other areas of government policy, we need to go beyond rhetoric. We need to go beyond censure. We need to hear more than words that censure Netanyahu. This government needs to act with Spain to recognise Palestinian statehood. You need to pass the Occupied Territories Bill with the support of opposition. You need to create meaningful sanctions on the Israeli government to help bring about a ceasefire and an end to the suffering in Gaza. Deeds, not words. Today's vote, we know, is a foregone conclusion. But how the incoming Taoiseach uses his new position is key. This government cannot pretend that this is business as usual, because Ireland is not working for far too many. And the Labour Party will not support this cosmetic changeover. Ours is a vision for a fairer Ireland and a more equal Ireland, supported by an interventionist state. We cannot be accomplices to a government which does not share our values of equality, solidarity and fairness. I do undertake, however, that we will continue to work constructively from opposition, to disagree agreeably, as they say. We did not, in fact, play populism on the vote of the order of business today. We will, of course, as a serious party, do all we can to hold this new Taoiseach and this government to account. But we will also commit to working with you where we can achieve common purpose, and we will be honest and fair, because our democracy is too precious to be denigrated in this House or in social media. So I'm asking the new Taoiseach to reciprocate that undertaking. Colleagues, there's less than a year to go, and we will all speak more later on what the new Cabinet can and must do. But for now, my call to Deputy Harris is this. If a general election will not be called now, as it should be, then you must commit to serving the people in a way that matters and to letting these houses carry out our constitutional function. So I'm I'm asking you to stop blocking opposition bills, to publish the meaningful policies we need on building homes, increasing hospital capacity, on disability rights and on welcoming refugees. Change is not easy, it takes courage, and if you won't go to the people, Deputy Harris and your colleagues, we hope you will act to deliver real change, because we need to see that change and we need to see an Ireland that works for all.